Bureau, and Jim Bittner, a longtime friend who I've got to know when I was visiting his farm. His wife runs a nice winery, but also the apple growers and all the other fruits. That's beautiful. And Jim Bittner is the president of the Council of Agricultural Organizations. So, and I would also encourage all of you to take a moment to gather some of the other members who we had a conversation with. They really have insights into the real impact that these tariffs are going to have on people like themselves in a place like New York, which is right on the border with Canada. But this is a nationwide impact, the tariffs that we're talking about. So, you know, they're anxious. I mean, they've got a lot of stress in their lives already, and this is just one more layer that they didn't need to have. And the uncertainty, and it was described, I don't know if, Jim, are you the one who said it's like playing billiards on a sailing ship? I mean, you just feel like there's no level ground. You don't know what's going to happen. And there's enough stress already. The price of everything is so much higher. But now to wonder, you know, is Canada and Mexico going to accept our products? I mean, 40% of agricultural products made here in New York are not consumed in the state of New York. They're exported to other countries. Now, if there is a retaliatory tariff on them of 25%, and Canada and China's already announced a 10% tariff on fruits and dairy, which they do get from New York, this is going to really hurt their margins, make it more difficult for them, but also the inputs coming into their farms. I mean, potash. Who knows what potash is? Didn't think so. There you go, fertilizer. 10 points for him. It's the most important element in fertilizer in New York State. 100% of it comes from Canada. So they're laying down the fertilizer in April. Guess what happens? In April, the agricultural tariffs are expected to go into place. And so this is something that's very much on their minds. We get all of our wood shavings from Canada. If you've ever been to a farm, I was holding a little goat last night. I mean, they sleep on wood shavings. So that price they already got the notice the price is going up for the wood shavings. And the energy costs are going to go up because we get a lot of our energy from Canada. And think about the fact that if Washington State, which is #1, and we're creeping up on them, we're #2, Washington State can't sell their apples to Mexico because of tariffs and other countries, they will start dumping them on the market. That's the fear I heard, that'll reduce the price of apples dramatically for our farmers and literally could drive them out of business. We have 32,000 family farms in the state of New York. That number should be increasing, not decreasing. That is my concern. We have, you know, 5th-generation farmers at the table. We had one young woman who's just starting out with her own. She's a 1st generation. Her kids want to take over the business, but they have to asking themselves, is this where we want to continue our livelihoods and pass on to our children in light of all these stresses that are generated out of Washington? Out of Washington. We didn't need to have these tariffs. Nothing dictated that we had to have these tariffs at this moment in history. So costs are going up, aluminum, everything. So it's basically a backdoor tax. And as I said before, economists are predicting that the average family is going to see increases in their costs for everything going up $1,300 to $3,000 a year. So this is a real hit on our families at a time we were promised affordability. Day one, prices are going to go down. The cost of eggs in New York City, $12 for a carton of eggs. I mean, this is crushing our families and our small businesses and our small diners who have to sell the eggs but don't want to increase the cost of serving breakfast to people all over the state. So these are the concerns that my constituents have. I'm the voice for them. When we go to Washington, I told all of them to make sure their local members of Congress who are in the majority in Washington, the Republicans, hear their voices loud and clear, because that's the only way we're going to effectuate change. And so, and if there's anything else I've missed here, but I'm deeply concerned about this. This is on top of a forum I held in Buffalo a few weeks ago with businesses with a lot of cross-border linkages between, you know, buildings, or supply chain materials coming over, aluminum and steel for building. Everybody is on high alert and the anxiety level is off the charts. That's not how you calm people down. It's how you ramp up the stress on them. And that's the last thing Americans need right now. Any questions on topic?
Let's start with on topics about agriculture.
Governor, can you talk about the effect you're obviously seeing what the stakeholders out there? What's your concern for that area specifically and the tariffs?
Well, dairy is huge in Western New York. I live down the road from the Little family farms. They're big. They've been through a lot. They've had the impacts of climate change dumped so much snow on the roofs of their farms that they've collapsed in the wintertime. We went out and visited them. So I think the dairy industry is very, very concerned about this. At a time when I'd heard a lot of compliments about my success in landing what'll be North America's largest dairy processing facility. Fairlife is being built in the Finger Lakes region as we speak. It's an extraordinary opportunity for there to be a marketplace for our dairy farmers, but these tariffs are going to make it so much more complicated. So I think when it comes to agriculture, it's affecting the markets for our dairy and also our fruit growers, of which there are many in Western New York as well. So those are the ones I heard from farmers in Western New York. But it's affecting everybody. Talk to Dottie Gallagher-Cohen, the head of the local business leadership community. I had a meeting with her and other businesses, and they are very concerned about this.
Okay, Zach?
Governor, you mentioned how these tariffs are affecting the prices of some really important goods. Do you anticipate that there'll be shortages of one type of vital product or another, either produced here or produced abroad?
I can't see into the future the complete impacts, but we have to be ready for all the above. How do we prepare our economy, our businesses, and our families for possibilities of shortages? I'm prepared to stockpile on anything. When I heard who is now the head of HHS and their view on vaccinations, for example, I said, I'm stockpiling bird flu vaccinations. I mean, those are areas where I have to step up very quickly and say, if I see something on the horizon that could be damaging to New Yorkers, I have to intercede very quickly. So if we see that happening, we'll have to deal with it. But again, that has to get out to the public. Everybody has to know the ripple effect that these tariffs will have on every sector of our economy, and it's just starting today.
Ben?
When you spoke to us about the budget a couple of weeks ago, you talked about how voters need to feel the impact of Republican policies. How do you ensure they blame the right person for these policies and don't blame you for them?
Because I'll tell them who to blame. It's very obvious. I'm not in Washington. I'm not deciding that there should be a punitive tariff that's going to affect every single farmer in my state and our businesses. That is obviously emanating from Washington. And if we had a balanced House of Representatives, one House Democrat, one House Republican, then you have a natural firewall that can stop this. That's how it was when I was in Congress. But right now, there's nothing stopping the floodgates from opening up, and all these cataclysmic impacts that will have a ripple effect throughout the economy. There's no one stopping it because the Republicans aren't standing up. So I had no problem saying, you know who your Republican congressman is. I know who they all are. I used to represent much of this area upstate. Go knock on their doors. Let them see the farmers show up. Let them know how angry you are that they're not stopping policies that are going to be detrimental to their livelihood. So I don't think there's a difficult link to say who did it, but I will listen. I'll help people understand the impacts. We'll do what we can here in New York. But this is just the beginning. This is literally just the beginning of what we're going to be feeling as a result of this administration.
Okay, on topic, Dan?
Governor, how does this change your thinking on the state budget moving forward? Costs on New Yorkers, costs for the state, I'm assuming, on some level. How does that change how you're thinking about it and the impact on it?
No, it has a complicated impact because we are a big consumer of products as well. I feed people in nursing homes and in hospitals and all the publicly funded institutions we have throughout the state. So it'll have a big effect on our costs as well, and we'll have to take that to the table when we're talking about the budget. I base our budget based on the circumstances at the time, but also trying to see a crystal ball into the future as best we can. But there was talk about tariffs, but also Canada and Mexico were given this grace period to see if they can stop the flow of fentanyl over the border. You know how much fentanyl comes in from Canada to this country? 1%. And Canada has a large border. We have a small piece of that. It's not coming in through here in any scale. But if it were, I'd be up there helping stop it. And we are. We're up there trying to do what we can. But the interdiction, I'm asking how much is coming in. It is not a lot. That does not justify punishing Canada, our best trading partner, our closest ally, our neighbors. They really are our neighbors. Why are we punishing them? We have so many other enemies abroad. Starting with Russia, and we're torturing and punishing our friends in Canada and Mexico. God, the world's turned upside down.
Anything else on topic? Keisha? We're getting to everyone.
Governor, you talked about the egg prices. the U.S. Ag Secretary had put out an op-ed that talked about potential funding for avian flu, but it also talked about importing eggs from other countries, which sounds like it would impact farmers
Yeah.
in New York State. Can you talk a little bit about that? Are you concerned with that?
Yeah, why are they putting a target on my egg growers, my egg farmers? Why are you doing that? Why are you trying to drive them underground and drive them out of business? Is that good for our economy, to make our farmers who we rely on, who support us, who feed us, drive them out of business? You can bring in eggs from other countries? No, that's not what we're going to allow here happening in the state of New York. That's gone too far.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the issues in terms of food safety and the avian flu is that you never hear about kosher food being recalled. And I don't know why there's no push, or could you explain why there isn't a push for more kosher farms in New York State that would, prevent any of this in New York State? And the tariffs wouldn't have a
Right,
problem
right.
because we'd be self-sufficient.
No, if there's demand for kosher farms, they absolutely should talk to us about how they get started. Absolutely. We are trying to, have more startups in this field. And it's hard. It's hard work. But you acquire the land, you decide, you put together a business plan, you talk to us. We have loans available for small businesses. Certainly, if there's a demand for it and people want to do this, we'll be.
Talking about the current farms.
Oh, the current farms. I think you said.
They're over to being kosher farms, and then their protections and food safety that would not
Understood.
have the problem that we're having here.
Understood. Certainly, we can take a look at that, right, Commissioner?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll take a look. All right.
Okay, Marie?
Yeah, so you mentioned retaliatory tariffs and the risks there. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, said he would look at trying to cut off the flow of energy into the United States. Are you concerned about, the risk of that to New York's, energy reliability and security?
Fortunately for our state, I'm good at developing positive relationships with our allies, not embarrassing them, not to denigrate them, and not to have retaliatory tariffs. I sat down with Doug Ford in Washington recently and had actually had a very positive conversation the first day we heard about the tariffs. It happened to be Canada Day in Albany, and I was with the Consul General as well. And he talked about his great fondness for New York. And again, if you grew up in a place like Western New York, where they're watching our television, half of the people at a Sabres game are from Canada, they come and watch the Bills game. It's an incredible synergy that I don't know that others can appreciate elsewhere in the state. He said he would not hurt New York. Now, whether that means he can help the flow of energy that we're already counting on to keep coming here, but I'm happy to have additional conversations with him on how we can support each other during this crisis. So I feel positive that anything within his power that he can control, that he will not be, we do not have a target on our backs from Canada because we have positive relationships with them.
Governor, obviously, you've said a number of times now you don't want to weigh in on the mayoral race, but I'm wondering what it says about your leadership, that a significant amount of New York.
Are we still on topic?
I will get to you when we do.
Is this, tell me the subtext to, this is really, tell me the roundabout way you're getting to tariffs. I want to see how clever this gets. What has this got to do with tariffs? We're talking about tariffs right now. Nope. Nope, 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 nope.
Can you complete it when we get to topic?
No, we're not doing that right now.
Well, I promise I'll get to it, don't worry. Anything else on topic?
On topics.
Agriculture tariffs, go ahead.
Governor, in a region like central New York that houses a lot of small family farms, and that will soon be the home of Micron, and where people are expecting kind of a lot of economic upturn, how do you, in the face of these tariffs, kind of plan to keep that promise for the people in central New York?
We'll do the best we can. Again, the people in central New York need to know elections have consequences. This is one of the dire consequences of the election this past November. I cannot change what's coming out of the White House. All I can do is try to fortify my state against, the impacts and try to continue the programming that we have in place to help businesses that are being hurt. And for families, I'm working hard to get my entire affordability agenda passed with this legislature literally in the next few weeks. And I've been out championing this in central New York and western New York and the Finger Lakes and the North Country and the Southern Tier and New York City and everywhere I've been, Hudson Valley, Mohawk Valley. I've been out there going into grocery stores talking to people about our inflation rebate $500 for families, our $1,000 for children under the age of 4, our child tax credit, $500 for kids in schools, middle-class tax cut, the largest rate decrease in 70 years, what we're going to do with covering the cost of school breakfasts and lunches, $1,600 a year savings for family. For an average family with a few little kids, this could be up to $5,000 per family. So understanding the stress they're under from forces in Washington and their decisions and their policies, even though they promise to reduce the cost of commodities and groceries and are not, I will do the best I can in New York with the power that I have. I need to get this through the legislature first.
All right, we're going to move to off topics if we want to excuse our colleagues from the agricultural community. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it. All right, thank you. Good to see you, Kim. Good to see you, Jim.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, as promised, Vaughn, you want to start on off?
Can I get some water? Let me get my water first. I'll do a commercial for you. I love chocolate milk. This is great. And these are my housing carrots. Remember my housing carrots? They actually look a little smaller. Last year I had really big ones. That was $650 million last year. I'm only adding $100 million this year, so they're a little smaller this year. That's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. So,
We're getting a water bottle, but hold on, you want to go ahead?
As I said, Governor, what does it say about your leadership that your predecessor is, that a significant amount of New Yorkers are comparing possibly back to your predecessor who seems to want to turn the clock back and go back to an old governor?
what's that got to do with my leader? I'm just questioning, what's that have to do with my leadership? I'm missing something.
Right. What does it have to do with your leadership that a significant amount of New Yorkers want to back your predecessor?
I'm still not seeing the connection. Is he running for governor? He's not running for governor. I'm the governor. I'm running the state. As you can tell, I have a lot of responsibility, and I'm not engaging in the mayoral race for a number of reasons. One is that there has to be at least one adult in the state of New York who's focused not on politics, not elevating their own personal career, not their own ambitions, but is actually governing and running the state, talking to farmers about the impact of tariffs, going and meeting families at a place called St. Mary's on a Sunday morning to say, I really feel that Medicaid cuts are going to be devastating. We've got to stand up. I'm focused on just trying to deal with all the incoming from Washington, manage a complicated state. And don't get me wrong, I love this job. But this has nothing to do with the mayor's race. Whomever the voters say they want as their mayor, I will work with them because I will do that because it's better for the people of the city. We'll continue working on subway safety, which has seen dramatic improvements because of money from the state and my investments. We're going to continue seeing more housing built in the city because of money from the state that was never there under previous relationships because I built relationships. We're cleaning up cannabis. Illegal cannabis shops are coming. I was just stopped in one in the Bronx the other day. Con Bud, I stopped in and met the owner again. And he was so grateful that we had closed down the illegal shops in his neighborhood. He's making an extraordinary amount of money, and he gave me a big hug and was very happy. So I know what I'm focused on: affordability, public safety, dealing with the mental health crisis, dealing with the budget. I'm not getting involved as much as you desperately want me to. I'm not talking about the mayor's race. Full stop. Thank you very much.
John? Is it good?
Yeah. Get this. I'm going for the real stuff here. Yeah. I'm going to have chocolate milk in front of you. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Wash it down with a donut.
On the topic of the current mayor, a week and a half ago, you put out, you said you were going to propose guardrails.
Mm-hmm. I did.
They haven't gone anywhere.
I know.
To this point.
There's a process.
So,
There's a process.
So what is going on behind the scenes? What can you tell us about why, if those guardrails are urgently needed, why have they seemed to stop?
I believe they're needed. I still believe that there's a lot of people that are very concerned about the influence of Washington on our city. I responded to that, not by saying I'm going to use the extraordinary powers to remove an individual from office who was duly elected. I will not go there, but also to give comfort to those who have that level of anxiety. Let's put some guardrails in place dealing with investigations, budgetary, and legal. what happens next in a democracy is that the legislators now have their opportunity. We're working closely with the Speaker's office and others in the City Council to craft the language that they believe they can support. Then it comes with a home rule message up to here to Albany. So that's the sequencing of this. Now, if people don't want to do it, and they basically saying we're satisfied with the status quo, that's also a possibility. But I want to say I did what I could to just calm down the anxiety, get to a level of normalcy, just like I had to do last fall when there was a lot of chaos, and we calmed it all down. That is one of my strengths, and that is what I'm striving to do here. So I don't know the final outcome, but I put in place a path that I believe will be important and effective. It's up to them to accept it.
Have you given any consideration to putting it in the budget, inserting it into the budget?
I need a home rule message first.
Okay.
So I know that you just reiterated you are the governor, you're interested in governing the state. You are a leader for women, and former Governor Cuomo, in an interview last night, said that he didn't know any of the women who could accuse him of sexual misconduct until the report came out. We know isn't true because he's after a multi-hour interview with the Attorney General's office. So I'm curious, are you concerned about the former governor rewriting history? Is that a slap in the face to the women who accused him of sexual misconduct?
I said a number of things when he first resigned about what I perceived as happening here. I stand by every word I said. I want you to know that. And I have long supported women who've been subjected to sexual harassment and even assaults throughout the state. I've changed the laws to protect victims and to give them more rights. So I will continue to be a champion. What has happened over the last few years is that people have made different decisions on whether or not they want to pursue the course they started on, correct? That's their decision. So I have to deal in the reality today. I stand by what I said at the time. I want to clearly say that. But I have to go forward in light of where we are today and deal with whatever the voters decide to deal with. But I don't turn my back on women ever.
There's a lot outside, you have a protest going on right now, lots of correctional officers and their families. What do you have to say to them? They're saying hold the line on the strike.
They're in violation of law. We have laws on our books that are supposed to protect us from this situation. Therefore, they are violating New York state law at this moment. I have been very sympathetic to their concerns. Very. I said that even before the strike. These are tough, tough, tough jobs. A lot of people don't want to do them. We're having recruiting problems. Everybody is. Local polices, NYPD, state police. We're having recruiting problems. I don't like them having to work longer shifts, the 24-hour shifts. That's a lot on their families, and I get that. But there is no justification to break the law in the state of New York. And they need to get back to work because they have created a dangerous situation for the other correctional officers who lived up to their duty and their oath and the law and are in those environments, the members of other unions who are there to feed and care for people and take care of their health care. The inmate population is at risk, as well as God bless the National Guard's men and women who are inside there dealing with absolutely unexpected circumstances, who are staying and showing up every day. I know these are hard jobs. I'm trying to recruit more people. I really am. And we're going to keep upping those numbers. I'm trying to find all the alternatives I can. But when 15,000 people walk off their jobs and turn the key and leave people alone in a prison, that has to be called out. It created very unsafe circumstances. So all the screaming and yelling here will have no effect on me. I know what I have to do, and I know they should be getting back to work. There are serious consequences. We have warned them day after day after day. More than as a mom, I usually give warnings, but I've done it. A lot of warnings that you're going to lose your health care. The health care is gone. People are going to go to be arrested. You could be going to jail. You've lost your job. You lost your income. You've lost everything. And those who've walked off the jobs for 11 consecutive days basically are AWOL, which allows us to accept that as a termination, a resignation. So we'll be accepting those resignations. But yes, people can be as noisy as they want and politicize this and do whatever they want. But this is not making our state safer. And that's my number one priority. I have visited prisons. I have visited. I've been a little busy trying to get people back to work, but I've had my commissioner of docks and Jackie Bray, Commissioner of Emergency Services, they are on helicopters all day long and flying into the night to go visit people for days now. They have been sitting down with corrections officers, listening to them, but this is a wildcat, illegal, unauthorized strike, which means we are not negotiating at the table with anyone who can speak for the people here and out there. And that's been challenging, because the union called out this as being illegal from the beginning. And that's who we're at the table with. So it's a complicated situation. I hope it ends soon, but otherwise, I'm working on a lot of Plan Bs.
All right, we got time for about 2 more.
Hi, I want to ask about your approach to President Trump so far. You've said before you have your iconic Rambo line, but you also have been asked before that you've said you aren't the resistance. Like, can you clarify how you're approaching Trump? Are you becoming more aggressive towards him? And are you worried that that is going to, have him incur the wrath and make New Yorkers feel that? And is your approach any different from the resistance politics that we saw in 2017?
A lot of subparts to that question. I'll try to give you one blanket answer. I'm doing exactly what I said I'd do from the beginning, that I will approach this with looking for opportunities to collaborate. If you want to work together on supporting infrastructure projects, I talked to him about Penn Station and the 2nd Avenue Subway and the Interborough Express and, making our safer subways, doing big things together. And I said, I'll work with anybody who wants to help our state. But as soon as they do something to harm New Yorkers, as I said months ago, then you're going to have to deal with me. And I didn't say I'm the leader of the entire resistance. I've resisted that. But I said, I will be the leader of the resistance when you do something like take away Medicaid, because now you're hurting those little kids who I was holding, talking to, and seeing the pain that their parents are going through on Sunday morning. And now they're terrified that their children are not going to have the life-saving services they need at St. Mary's Hospital. So all of a sudden, this has turned into an attack on the people of my state, our state. It's a different level. You also tell me that we can't control our own traffic in New York City, and we have to shut down congestion pricing and turn off the cameras, even though this has been studied for multiple decades. 4,000-page report confirms that we've done everything right. The federal government has signed off on it. And now you're saying we can't do it just because, I don't know, New Jersey isn't happy? I mean, it's working. Have anybody been in the city lately? It's working beyond what anybody expected. So I will tell you this, I'll continue this approach. You've got another area you want to work together? Let's do it. Let's do it. I sat down with a lot of his cabinet members just a week ago and talked to them about different policies. I will be that person. I don't need to full-time go out there and fight.
And
But
do you see your approach as different from other governors like Governor Mills or Governor Pritzker?
I think they're doing the same thing. When something attacks them directly, they speak out. But governors are actually pretty busy people. I served in Congress. There's a lot of free time because you're waiting for votes. Don't laugh, Avi. You're waiting for votes. You're just waiting around a lot. Governors don't wait around a lot. We have crises by the second. They all do. So we're not sitting here thinking about how I can take another shot at the Trump administration because I have nothing else to do. We're people who have to focus on results and delivering for our citizens, especially when I've got worried farmers about tariffs. I've got worried families about Medicaid. I've got people wondering if congestion pricing is going to be gone after they know it's working. So I will say this, all the governors are in the same boat. We'll stand up and fight when we have to, but otherwise, we're governing our states. These are full,
One more, Ben. Just quickly about something in your budget, these proposals around discovery reform, which we're hearing have a lot of opposition in the Senate and maybe also in the Assembly. I'm curious how you view this in terms of what was passed in 2019 and 20. Like, what does it say that you're doing this with the backing of the DAs? What does it say about the politics of criminal justice right now? Does it show sort of the center moving on that issue? I mean, do you see kind of a pullback from some of the where the politics of that moment was and now?
Yes, I do. I think there's been a shift in public attitude. Many times in government, you correct for abuses, and there certainly were abuses that justified a number of changes. But the pendulum swings, and you start seeing the impacts, like maybe there's unintended consequences, like the enormous number of cases that are now being dismissed to the great frustration of our police and our DAs all across New York, not just in the city, but everywhere. And that's not making people safer. So we saw a spike in crime. So you say, why is crime up? Well, there's a lot of recidivists. Why are they out on the street? Why were their cases dismissed? So I start analyzing this over the last few years, and I concluded that we need to revert back to some of the bail laws that were in place before they were changed, by my predecessor in the legislature back in 2019. We did a number of those, and we're seeing different results. But the discovery laws, I can't talk to a single DA without them bringing this up, whether I'm in Albany or I'm in Queens. It's all they're talking about is the work that's being done, and on technicalities, very minor reasons, they're required to have the cases dismissed, and people are back out in the street. So because of the increase in crime over the last few years, this has changed people's attitudes about this dramatically. So does it mean it's back to the middle? Or I don't know if you can conclude that. Perhaps it is, but it's just a common sense place that says, what else can I do as governor, working with the legislature, responding to the needs of our law enforcement and our district attorney? How can I make the changes that are necessary to make people safer in this state?
Is that a reflection of how voters feel? Why do you think that's, what do you guys respond to?
I think everybody feels this way on the streets. I really do. I think they're just saying, why are so many people who commit crimes back out on the streets that shouldn't be? Again, we have strong protections for people, through the legal process. We should, through the criminal justice system. That's very important to me. But also, when a case is made and you have evidence and it's thrown out because you have a recording, you have a transcript, but you might have missed one tiny element that does not really go to the substance of the case, and the whole thing is thrown out for that reason, which is what is happening, then you just have to say, this isn't working anymore. This isn't working. So that's a reaction to where I think the general population is, but also they want us to do something about it. I don't go out and do a poll on whether I should do something and put my finger up in the wind and see how it's blowing. I don't do that. I have enough data to know we have a problem. I get reports on crime every day of the week. So I'm just trying to solve a problem, and I hope the legislature, hearing from their constituents who want something done and their district attorneys, will work with me, and I do think we'll make some progress.
All right,
I am
thanks,
optimistic.
everybody.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Get a donut. Everyone get a donut.